Number 1. Genghis Khan is often portrayed as a simply brutal and merciless warrior, although he understood the power of diplomacy pretty well, being a master strategist. Besides his well-known conquests and the military dominance he won, Genghis also had this rather underrated skill. They helped him forge alliances to develop his empire. Genghis did not rely solely on brute force to achieve his goals. He recognized that building relationships with neighboring tribes and leaders could be just as effective as winning battles. By a series of carefully negotiated treaties, marriages, and strategic relationships, he united the fragmented Mongolian tribes into a single entity upon the steppes. This unity later provided the foundation for establishing one of the largest empires in history. His very approach on the battlefield was diplomatically enhanced. For example, with talented administrators, scholars, or master craftsmen in newly seized areas, he embraced them rather than destroying these communities. Genghis Khan used diplomacy not in a way to avoid unnecessary conflict. Rather, it was about putting down a stable and loyal foundation of his empire. With this combined with unbeatable military prowess, it built a legacy that the entire world continues to be hypnotized by. Genghis Khan proved that diplomacy, when united with strength, is a tool that creates greatness. Number 2. Genghis Khan revolutionized the way leadership and loyalty worked within his army. Unlike many rulers of his time who favored nobles or relatives for key positions, Genghis Khan had a groundbreaking approach. He promoted soldiers based on skill, not status or lineage. This merit-based system became one of the pillars of his unstoppable Mongol war machine. If a soldier proved their courage, intellect, or leadership on the battlefield, he could move forward up the ranks irrespective of his social origin. It didn't matter whether you were a common herder or belonged to some lowly family. What mattered was that you delivered results. Not only did this ensure that the fittest led his armies, but also that his soldiers displayed ferocious loyalty to their commander. They knew they were fighting for a ruler who did not consider them expendable. They were fighting for a leader who recognized and rewarded their talents. This approach created a unifying respect within his ranks. His army became a tightly knit force, a highly efficient one. Soldiers were fighting for something greater. They felt that their efforts may lead them to personal advance. Having built an empire founded on loyalty, respect, and military precision unlike any other, Genghis Khan's lesson in leadership endures through time. Number 3. Under Genghis Khan's rule, the Silk Road entered a golden age and became one of the most vibrant trade networks in history. Stretching across Asia and connecting the east to the west, this ancient route flourished like never before under the Mongol Empire. Genghis Khan understood the immense value of trade and ensured that merchants could travel safely across his vast territory. To do this, he enforced severe laws to safeguard merchants from robbery and violence, creating an atmosphere in which trade could flourish. Caravans of silk, spices, precious metals, and thousands of other commodities passed freely across his empire, creating unprecedented economic prosperity. But it wasn't just material goods that traveled on the Silk Road. Ideas, technologies, and cultures also moved, connecting civilizations and fueling innovation. The thriving trade also strengthened the local economies and brought wealth to the regions under Mongol control. Cities along the route became busy commercial centers that attracted merchants from all corners of the known world. Genghis Khan's policies were not just economic boosters. They linked different cultures and formed a base for globalization. Genghis Khan secured the Silk Road, and it became a lifeline of prosperity and exchange. Thus, his legacy lives on as that of a visionary leader. Number 4. Genghis Khan was a leader beyond his time in terms of religious tolerance. In a period when religion was being warred over, he made the astoundingly progressive move to provide freedom of religion in every part of his empire. He believed that a united empire requires its diverse people to harmonize with one another, and granted them the right to be able to practice their faith freely in order to reach this state. Under his rule, Buddhists, Christians, Muslims, and many other religious groups coexisted peacefully within the Mongol Empire. He even exempted religious leaders from paying taxes, recognizing the value they brought to their communities. Genghis understood that faith played a significant role in people's lives and respected its importance, even if it differed from his own beliefs in the traditional Mongolian shamanic practices. This religious freedom policy wasn't just a matter of tolerance, but a strategic move. Respecting and protecting various religions won him the loyalty of conquered populations and brought stability within his vast empire. Diverse cultures and traditions could now flourish under Mongol rule because of Genghis Khan's open-minded approach. Support for religious coexistence was practical for Genghis Khan, but it was visionary, and one of the most amazing things about him is still remembered. Number 5. One of the major innovations of Genghis Khan was the establishment of a kind of rapid communication, what is often called the Yam, or Mongolian postal system. This system has been designed to be quickly connected with the vast expanse of his empire, which traverses continents. At the most basic level, it revolved around a network relay stations strategically located along major routes. These stations were supplied with fresh horses and messengers, which ensured that information traveled incredible distances at unprecedented speeds. News could travel over thousands of miles in a matter of days, quite a feat for the then world. This system didn't just serve the war, it helped in trade, governance, and diplomacy. Its use by merchants, officers, and envoys streamlined the movement of news, orders, and resources across the empire. Yam formed as the lifeline for all vast and diversified Mongol territory under Genghis Khan and became the well-organized and connected world with such a vision. As by laying down priorities of communication for their own world, it seemed that Mongols made provisions in place for global networks, proving to the world that information itself is just as potent an army to build up as maintain it. Number 6. Genghis Khan was the master of psychological warfare. He used fear as his tool to weaken his opponents before a single arrow had even been fired. His name spread throughout the land with its brutal reputation and unstoppable conquests that often defeated the enemy even before the armies reached the location. Stories of his brutal tactics, such as leaving entire cities in ruins or sparing only a few survivors to spread tales of destruction, were deliberately circulated to strike fear into the hearts of his enemies. This fear often saw cities and tribes surrender without even a fight, saving Genghis Khan the lengthy battles. He amplified this psychological impact by using strategic deceptions, such as exaggerating his force size. For example, his army would light multiple campfires at night to create an illusion of a massive invading force. This calculated use of terror wasn't just about the destruction, it was a method to conserve resources and be swift on victories. Breaking down the morale of his enemies led Genghis Khan to reduce resistance and consolidate power better. Psychological warfare mastery showed that not only does one win a battle in the field, but rather in the heads of one's opponents, making Genghis Khan a terrible and genius leader. Number 7. Probably one of the most strategic and clever techniques used by Genghis Khan was the art of the fake retreat. His forces pretended to have a retreat from the place of battle and made believe that they had lost while the enemy side thought they controlled the situation. This retreated army would create just enough hindrance to show vulnerability on their part. The adversary would then become more ambitious and move forward from its defensive positions. Once the enemy took the bait and moved into a more vulnerable position, the Mongol army would suddenly turn around, regroup, and launch a fierce counterattack, catching their pursuers off guard and disorganized. The Mongols were masters of this tactic, using it to trap enemies in a deadly pincer movement or ambush, often leading to complete annihilation. The success of this tactic relied on extreme discipline, patience, and coordination. The Mongol soldiers had to maintain composure and timing while pretending to flee. ensuring that the enemy would fall into the trap. This clever use of deception was one of the reasons why the Mongol army was so feared. They didn't just rely on sheer strength. They outsmarted their enemies, turning their own strategy against them. Number 8. Genghis Khan's legacy is one of the most enduring and complex in history. As a visionary ruler, he unified the Mongol tribes and created one of the largest empires the world has ever seen, stretching from China to Europe. His ability to organize a vast, diverse empire with a sophisticated system of governance, communication, and trade was nothing short of revolutionary. He advocated meritocracy. That is, it was not the birthright, but the ability that ensured one's success, and he appreciated religious freedom and allowed several faiths to coexist in his empire. But Genghis Khan was also a ruthless warlord, renowned for his military genius and relentless will. He used new tactics, such as psychological warfare and false retreats, to overcome opponents much greater in number. His armies were invincible, and often his reputation alone was enough to cause enemies to surrender without a struggle. Genghis Khan's legacy lives on not only because of his military conquests, but because of the systems he put in place that shaped the course of history. He bridged cultures, fostered trade, and influenced the development of civilizations across continents. His name evokes both fear and admiration, a testament to his status as one of history's most influential and formidable leaders.